Today we're going to be talking about audiobooks, and I know you're going to be excited. And so let me introduce my guest for that service. Candace Barnes is an experienced sales and marketing professional with a strong focus on digital marketing and personal branding under the Bridgetek Group LLC brand. Along with being a self-proclaimed audio enthusiast who honed skills with her In the Circle podcast on Spotify, Candace is an audiobook narrator and editor. She also does general voiceover work. Candace does audiobook narration via Findaway Voices and is the chief audiobook narrator and producer at Bambusparks. She understands the importance of getting the audio version just right, knowing that it takes quite a bit of time, energy, and sacrifice to write a book. She did the narration and production of my audiobook, Write and Retire Right, which is currently on Audible and 42 other platforms via Findaway Voices. Candace's voice marries well with a wide range of genres. Her narration and voiceover work goes beyond books. She takes the time to understand the end goal of her clients and works with them to provide a smooth, clean, and clear audio presence. Candace believes audio is an art and should be treated as such. Without further ado, welcome to the summit, Candace.
Well, thank you, Ruth. It's such a pleasure to be here, and thank you for the opportunity. I greatly appreciate it.
So, folks, you heard that melodious voice just now. And so she's going to tell us more about herself and how she got into audio in the first place.
Yes, and this is the interview voice. You should hear the reading voice. It's they have to listen to your book to hear it. But similar to many people during the whole COVID scenario, and we were all on lockdown, that's when audio started to tweak my interest. This is the time that we were in lockdown, and it was an opportunity to find new interest. And it started with my In the Circle podcast. And in doing a podcast and with people listening to it, they were saying, do you do audio work? Did you work in radio? And I'm like, no, it was just, what are you talking about? But then when I think back, I realized too, even for church, when anything needed to happen in particular for reading, etc., I was the one that would be called upon. And so I started pondering and saying, maybe this is something that I should look into. In doing so, I realized the capacity of what audio is. If you ever noticed, whenever anything needs to happen, the visual is very easy. You can turn a camera on and you can zoom in and out and you get the visual. With audio, not the case. Audio is always the problem. Have you ever gone to like a concert and they're constantly checking sound checks, because audio is just so tricky to capture. And so I've learned, having done some audiobooks so far, how intricate it is. And it's actually tweaked my interest. It is challenging, and the challenge of getting audio right has really tweaked my interest. And now I'm so passionate about it.
Awesome. I'm going to go back a bit and then come back to the audio story, because I know that's what persons are looking to hear. But talk to us about your company, Bridgetek, and the marketing and branding services that you currently offer. And then we're going to come back to audio, because I believe these two marry nicely and will help authors.
Absolutely. So Bridgetek Group was birthed out of the effort of creating what we call a personal brand. Usually when we talk about branding, we think about organizations. We think about, just think of your favorite brand that's out there. Why are you interested in them? Why do you purchase from them? For example, in Jamaica, Lasco, everyone knows what Lasco represents, the product that they carry and all that. But what we forget as well is that we as an individual we are a brand. What do we represent? What do people think about when we, talk about, when you hear the name Ruth Taylor, what does that represent? Someone that is entrepreneurial, that can guide you with your publishing, that is an educated influence for book publishing, etc. So for authors, it's the same thing that we would do, where if authorship or authorpreneurship is a piece of who you are as a brand, we incorporate that, and so that when people think of you, or they think of your book, or they think of your, all the different elements that make up who you are, that's what we do. That's what we help to send the message, either through mainly through digital sources, because that's where things are going, social media, if we're support writing, any PR releases, things like that. Whatever it is that the message that you're trying to get out there, we support you in delivering that message and making it consistent, which is important.
Okay, so does that also mean if our authors are looking for exposure, that you would help them, and does your podcast facilitate authors coming and sharing their story and what they do?
Absolutely, yes. So exposure I think, is the key word. And if they go on my website, bridgetekgroup.com, the slogan is "Get Exposed." And part of the process of being exposed is, yes, through the In the Circle podcast. It is a podcast that really highlights what people may be interested at any given time. And in particular, stories of encouragement, stories of resilience, stories of how people get to where they are at this point. And I think author stories and backstories are key elements of what the podcast can deliver. Sometimes people will look at a book and think, wow, you wrote a book, but they have no idea the process and the commitment and the understanding of what it takes to get a book from idea to on the shelf or digitally. It's a huge, ask any author. Once they're done, it's like birthing a child. And then they go, do I want to do this again? And for those very few, they do go ahead and do it again.
And I asked Candace to share that because one of the things authors struggle with is marketing. And so she is not just an audiobook narrator or a voiceover specialist. She's also into marketing. And so I want you to check out those services. All right, so let's get back into audio. If I want to do an audiobook, what are the steps that I should take as an author? What's the process like? Can I get my book on Audible?
First, I want to highlight that having your book as an audio option is key. I think sometimes authors forget about that. It's a complete different audience. And I think audio is probably growing faster year over year as far as it's being consumed more than actual people physically reading a book. I'm not sure if that's a good thing or a bad thing, but I think because audio has that flexibility that you can listen to it at any time versus having to sit down and take time to physically read a book. The process of getting your book to an audio version, there is a process. It depends on how long your book is. However, you're not the one doing the work to get it to audio. So it's a good thing that you have someone that's able to transition the written word to verbal. Before I started doing audiobooks, I thought, oh, this can't be too difficult. You just go ahead and read a book. No, that is not the case. There are rules and steps that need to be followed to ensure that when you're listening as the listener, that they're hearing something clean, crisp, and that the message comes through. And I think that is the key to ensure that whoever you choose, would love for you to choose our team to do your audio, but whoever you choose, that deliverable is there. If you ever listen to, if you're an avid listener of audiobooks, you can tell the difference between the one that you're listening to that will put you to sleep and you're not interested in really listening to what's happening, and the one that actually delivers what the author is trying to get the author's voice through to the audience. And I think that's where the challenge, that's where the key part of making sure that you pick the right person to do your book. I think that's a key process, or key step, I should say. The process for us is actually quite simple. We have a form that you complete for us to understand how you would like your audiobook done. And there are a number of steps, and I don't want to take too much time to go through that, but the main reason behind those questions is to make sure that we're on the same page that you are as the author. It is your work that is being put out there, and even though it's a different person's voice, it represents who you are. So we want to make sure that that is clearly understood. Once we go through that process of having you complete the form to detail what your vision is, then we do a one-on-one just to make sure, just probably on a Zoom call, just to make sure that all questions are addressed, make sure that we understand clearly what your vision is. And then, of course, we started kind of pre-reading your book. And Ruth can attest to this. We're going through, and sometimes as the person that's doing the audiobook, we're catching these things sometimes from a printed, because we read exactly what we see. And sometimes we realize the flow may need to be different from how it is in print to be able to transition it to audio. And we also communicate that with you. The next step is to, of course, publish your audiobook. And we work with Findaway Voices. And the main reason we do is that it allows you to be in multiple platforms, and multiple deliverable platforms for your audiobook. So if someone is in Russia, for example, and they want to purchase your audiobook, they're able to do so. Compared to, say, ACX, which is the Amazon audio deliverable, you may not have as many reach. And for our authors that are in the Caribbean, Findaway Voices works best just because it can cover international reach compared to some of the other more popular, I shouldn't say more popular, what people consider to be primary audio deliverable, which is ACX. And that is the process. Afterwards, it's a lot of editing and a lot of work, and then making sure that the sound is right, making sure it's going to sound funny, but there's a certain amount of space at the start of each chapter, a certain amount of space at the end. How do you introduce the book? How do you close the book? How much space is in between each chapter? The flow and the tone, all that is being considered, or else the audiobook will be rejected by the audiobook company that we're using. So lots of work go in to make sure that your book sounds the way that it should.
And I can attest, folks, for example, you have to be careful how you use the URL in the book, where you're saying www. And you have some long URL in terms of bullet points, how that is to be read. In terms of, sometimes you're doing giveaways, then you have to interpret that. And so it is a meticulous process. But as meticulous as it is, there are authors who want to self-narrate. What advice do you have for them? Or do you master and edit books that have already been narrated by the author?
We can master and edit books that has already been edited by the author, but before they go and narrate their book, I would recommend they have a conversation with us first, just because that there are so many different things that they need to take into place while they're narrating. First, if they find a studio that is familiar with audiobook, that is huge. There are several studios out there, but they're tuned in with music. It's completely different for music than it is for narrating a book. Music, you can hide things easily. Well, someone that's a musician may disagree, but with audiobook, everything comes through. The sound, any little tone, any change, you'll be surprised what will be able to come through. Also the rules around spacing and tone and decibels, all that. And we have details that we can give to the author if they wish to narrate their own book, that they can communicate with the studio. So that's definitely an option. I know there are several authors out there with beautiful voices, and they should be able to narrate if they would like to. But as long as they're following certain criteria, then it's going to be challenging.
Awesome. I love that. So if you intend to self-narrate, we ask you to talk to us because there are certain criteria. For example, one of my authors, children's book author, her book Donkey Say, she went to the studio, a professional studio, to get it done, but we had to give her the criteria so that they could do it properly. And then if that is done by the studio, we also have a service where we assist you in the upload process. But let me ask you the $1 million question, Candace, because ever since I heard about audiobooks, all I kept hearing is that audiobook production is expensive. That is a turn up. I've been hearing that from day one. So on average, what are the charges that persons, what are the industry standards and rates that authors can bear in mind if they're going to take on the task of producing an audiobook?
Yes, so the term that is used is PHF, per finished hour. And the reason why it says per finished hour is because even after you record, say, a chapter, you're going to have to go in and listen to make sure that there are no errors. You have to make sure that even sometimes this is a time you find that there may be an error in the book. You may let the author know, but that's how that you read it exactly. But as you go back and listen, you realize, oh, something is off here. For example, one of the rules is, 1 to 5 seconds at the end of each chapter. But as far as per finished hour, I've seen anything from $250, $300 per finished hour. And that's why we're hearing that it can be pricey depending on how long your book, how extensive your book is. But for the team, excitement around Bambusparks and what Bambusparks can offer, we've made it very specific in pricing just for Bambusparks, and it is there is a link that Ruth will be putting out that will highlight the pricing. I don't even want to say what it is out loud because it is exclusive to Bambusparks authors only, and it's just what it is, just what Ruth has really pushed to ensure that our authors are getting the best rate out there.
Thank you so much, Candace. And what we've always done is to find a way to make things easier for our Caribbean authors. And so when you hear the standard rates of $250 to $350 per finished hour, I believe sometimes the expense is because whenever people think about audiobooks, they're thinking about fiction with 100,000 words, and it's 5 hours and more. So the longer the book, the more you're going to pay. And the audiobook services that we're offering is for non-fiction books and short books. That is one of our tips to keep your costs down. So you can still be paying the $350 or the $250 per finished hour. But if your book is 3 hours or less, hour and a half to 3 hours, then it's still not a lot of money. It's a little bit less than what you would have paid to produce your print book. Candace is a female. Some of you may want male narrators or things like that. She is an approved audio book freelancer with Findaway Voices. So you can talk to her and she can take you through those steps on that platform. Where you can audition and things like that. So we'll help you. And we want you to stay tuned because we have more things coming up as it relates to audio. So we're not going to compromise on quality. You can still even pay the standard rates, but focus on small nonfiction books and you'll be able to keep your costs down. So there is an application form and a page, and we're going to provide that information to you. So we ask you to register, make sure you're registered so you can get all these details.
And so the links that you will see, there would be a link if you would like to have your book recorded. And there's a separate link as well if you want us just to upload to Findaway Voices. We just need you to give us the information that is required, and we'll take it from there, and we'll be in communication with you because they ask certain personal things that we don't want you to share with anyone, not even us, like your tax details, etc. We'll walk you through how to get that loaded and final, and then push out through Findaway Voices.
All right. So where can we find out more about what you do and your services, Candace?
So if you go to bridgetekgroup.com, you can find out general information about Bridgetek Group, but information specific to what is offered, through Ruth Taylor, through the launch of, the new exciting vision that's coming ahead that you'd want to be a part of. There's a specific link that was created that will be noted for those that have registered, and it was just specifically created with details just for you as authors, with rates, etc. So any additional questions that anyone may have from there, they'll be able to see a link on Bridgetek Group for any comments or communication, or they can email me at admin@bridgetekgroup.com.
Thank you so much. I do want to thank Candace for coming and sharing. And what I am going to do is include an audio clip of Candace reading my book, Write and Retire Right, that you see in the background, so that you can hear her beautiful reading voice.
Conclusion: turning it into glory. Endurance is not just the ability to bear a hard thing, but to turn it into glory. William Barclay. Don't waste your life experiences, not even the painful ones. Painful experiences can lead to beautiful destinations. There is joy on the other side of pain if you stay the course and find purpose in it. It is now my privilege to help indie authors write their books fast, publish affordably, and create a platform to transform not only their lives, but the lives of millions of people. My journey is still young, but it has taught me enough to play my part in seeing lives transformed. Don't let finances hinder you from fulfilling your purpose. As world-renowned motivational speaker Jim Rohn once said, "When the what and the why are known, the how will appear." I have deliberately tried to keep this book simple and show you from my experiences and research that it is possible to write and retire right. I used to think writing was reserved for people with great literary skills, and that it needs to take years to write a valuable book. I've since discovered that your years of experience, skills, and expertise are all that matters. With the right coach or publisher, express your ideas and they can transform your words into a literary masterpiece. Not only that, once you have a story or a message worth sharing, it can be organized in a simple form. That is what especially non-fiction writing is all about. You need not be a literary genius to write a non-fiction book. Record and organize your ideas. Share them with the world. Once you have written that book, don't minimize those possibilities by merely selling to friends and family. Build a business, launch a movement, aim for a cause, and multiply the impact of your book. As indie authors, We stand at one of the greatest moments in history. Let's make the best of it. If you're just beginning your journey, this book will give you the right foundation you need to speed up your progress later on. Remember, someone's destiny is tied to your book. Someone's healing or deliverance is tied to your book. Don't keep them waiting.
Inviting you to come back this evening at 7 p.m. where we're going to be talking about creative writing and children's books with Dr. Sharma Taylor and Greta Malcolm. So see you later.